Okay, so let's move on to running back next. And this is a very interesting group because you're losing Abram Smith, you're losing Treston Ebner, you're having to replace those guys with guys who aren't proven or have been injured a lot. And specifically, I'm talking Squirrel Williams and Tay McWilliams, as those are the two most likely to take over the true 1-2 combo in Baylor's backfield.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I think the only thing that makes it tough to analyze this room from the spring game perspective. So those two were clearly the two best guys in the spring game, but they were also the only two running backs who got significant time with the first team offense. I think, by nature of the spring, offensive line has way fewer numbers, which means that the second team offensive line often isn't as good as it will be in the fall. And I only bring that up to say that when you watch guys like Jordan Jenkins, Josh Fleeks, Quaylen Jones, and these other backups running behind the second team offensive line, it was almost difficult to even kind of get a feel for what they could do. Josh looked super hesitant, and he's a guy who's looked hesitant in the past, but it's because Apu Ika was also in his face every play, so that was tough to tell. But I do think that I could see enough in the spring game to know Squirrel and Tay are pretty clearly kind of 1A and 1B for this offense. You and I sat together at the spring game, Grayson, and I think before the game started, I said, somehow Squirrel got brought up, and I was just like, I just got this feeling about him, and I think we all know he's going to be amazing, but all offseason everyone's been saying, just get him 4, 5, 6 touches a game, but then you see the ball in his hands, and if you're playing up against, the final game of the year against Texas to go to the conference title game, they're not only going to give them the ball 5 times. He's getting the ball 20. I think he'd be closer to 25 than 5.
Yeah.
And obviously Tay's going to be able to take off a significant load. But when I watch Squirrel run the ball, I think he very clearly, when healthy, is probably the best running back that has ever put on a Baylor uniform. I know that's saying a lot. I know there's not a lot of experience to back that up. But just from that spring game and what we've seen previously from him, he just has the kind of instincts that just don't occur to most running backs. He has them. And then his counterpart in Tay is obviously a much kind of different back. I think he's interesting because Squirrel's 5'8", but runs between the tackles. Tay can run between the tackles, but he's very much, I had a friend who said it perfectly, he's a stallion who wants to run free. He wants to get out in the open field. If he can make that one guy miss, it's gonna be kind of like the opposite of Abram last year was fast, but he had a lot of trouble making that one guy miss at the second level. Tay should be better at making that one guy miss. And when he gets off to the races, he runs a 4.45.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's very fast, and he runs so physical.
Yeah.
And even though Squirrel is better at finding the hole, and Squirrel's much more patient of a runner, Tay is so physical, and he was moving. That was the most encouraging thing about him, is that he was moving the pile every single time, which is what Abram did last year, that made him so effective. So I'm right there with you. I don't think they're going to run the ball as much as they did a year ago.
Yeah.
Between Ebner and Abram Smith, they had 400 carries. They had over 400 carries. I don't think they're going to get to that number between those two guys this year. I think they're going to take more shots in the passing game, and that's going to change up some things in my eyes. But I do think they both can be very effective. Now, is there going to be a third guy at all?
I don't know. That is the question. I think Tay pretty clearly profiles as a third down back. He's a guy that can play on base downs also, but he's such a good receiver. He's a good pass protector. He's a big guy. I think he profiles in that direction. And then Squirrel is so good on early downs. Those kind of seem like the two guys to me. And I am worried about the depth. They have a lot of numbers at the position. Jordan Jenkins. Now they add Richard Reeves, Kyan Roberts-Day. They have Josh Fleeks. They have Quaylen Jones. But if either of those two guys get hurt, I don't know that I feel good about any of those guys. If those two guys are at 100, can any of those guys behind them get to at 90% of where they're at? Jordan Jenkins is probably I'd probably say Richard Reese is my best bet to be that third guy this year. I know he's tiny, but he's small, which allows him to bulk up quickly, and he's already really strong, and he's old for his grade. And I think he's going to be ready to play, but you need somebody who can take the load off, because you don't want it to be a situation like last year where two guys essentially got 99.9% of the carries.
Yeah, I think it would depend on who got hurt. I do think that if it was Squirrel, I think Jenkins would probably get a lot more work. You'd work in Reese some too, probably. But if Tay got hurt, I think that's maybe where Josh Fleeks comes in a little bit.
As a third down guy.
Yeah, because of his pass catching. You could use him in a variety of ways. You could even split him out wide like they did with Ebner at times. I just think he'd be kind of a versatile weapon if something happened.
Definitely.
To Tay. So I could see that
and
happening.
I want it to work out for Josh so
too.
bad. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a dream athlete, and what he's struggled with at wide receiver too is that he kind of there's the phrase in business, paralysis by analysis, where you don't end up doing anything because you overanalyze the situation. And I feel like that's how Josh is with the ball in his hands. And the nice thing about wide zone is it's a very read-based running scheme. Like, the running back gets the ball and they look at the defensive end. Depending on what the defensive end does, they go this way or that way. And then they look at the next guy and then make their decision. So it should make it pretty straightforward with him, where it's not just like giving him the ball and telling him to do whatever he wants. So I'm hoping that he's able to take that to heart and and play faster, because he has such great athleticism that if he could just plant his foot in the ground and get upfield, that he'll be really valuable.
Yeah, and I hope Kyan Roberts-Day gets on the field as well, as a 250-pound, if he can lose the weight, 250-pound running back. Use him in goal line.
He just needs to be on like an IV drip and not eat for the next 2 months.
I know, right? If he wants to see the field, that is probably very true.